What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Q, and I know you're back for just the tips. Today we're gonna be putting together my Ford 9-inch for my 82 Regal. It's been a long overdue project, so let's get after it. Well, here it is, my Ford 9-inch from Quick Performance. Been wanting this for about 10 years, so don't think that this is an unobtainium goal. I've just been wanting it for pretty much since I got the car, and I did the same thing that you're probably thinking right now. Wow, that's a lot of money. But in my math, I did, if you fix the 7.5 to handle a little bit of horsepower, there's nothing guaranteed with that past 500 horsepower, and you're basically wasting your money. So here, you take the same money that you're gonna put into that rear end and you apply it here, and then once you start adding up all the little things, like the brakes, like to me that's not really included in the housing and all that, and you get where we're at right now. You got help? It's my daughter Paisley. So I also went with the UMI Performance solid upper and lower control arms. The upper is adjustable, which is the only adjustability, in my opinion, that you need, because that'll help you get your pinion angle, and it'll also set the side-to-side movement of the axle. A snail? Yeah. Ooh. Oh, it's outside? Yeah. Oh, okay. Uh-huh. You want your chair? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Daddy's making a video. All right. So I did a bunch of research on the control arms. This is what I came up with. It's UMI's Pro Touring type solid control arm with an adjustable upper, which to me is all I really need in my application. And I would prefer the drivability standards of a solid control arm and have the least amount of connections as possible, because I still plan on driving this car on the street a lot. Everyone has the Heims joints for their control arms. I looked at a lot for TRZ, and then they have Darlin bushings, and then UMI came out with a roto joint, which is a Heims joint and a Darlin bushing put together, and you just grease it like a regular fitting, but there's zero give in the position of these control arms, so it's just as solid as a Heims joint. But these were quite expensive, but I didn't want to put this nice of a rear end in the car without something, you know, to complement it. And so that way the whole rear end assembly will be complete. I also got one of their drive shaft loops, which is all I'm waiting on to put this in the car. But I figured I might as well put this together. I haven't opened the boxes or anything and see how everything looks, but let's check it out. Daddy. You guys gonna help me open it? Yeah. Okay. Be careful with the staples, okay?
Ooh, what's inside?
What could it be?
A car part.
A car part? Why would it be a car part?
Because it's big and long.
Oh. You heard that, Mom?
Oh,
Ooh.
it was a car part.
You're pretty good at this. That's pretty.
Cup. That's a lot.
Yeah, you helping me? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's open the next package.
Got bolts for it. Nice.
It maybe be another car part.
What? That seems to be the theme today. Ooh.
It's another car part.
Yeah. You gotta be like, this is a 35 spline axle.
This is a 35 axle.
35 spline.
35.
It's another one.
30 axle.
35 Lilac. Mama, tell him it's a 35 spine axle.
Axle.
It's what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cheese. So I'm gonna give you an update on the rear end and where I'm at. So cleaned up all the burrs on the inside in here. This thing was gusseted. There's a bunch of loose metal still in here before they drilled this hole. Mounting these studs was really hard. You can see where I messed up the sealing surface on there pretty good. Messed up a bunch of washers. Tried to just draw them in like a lug nut stud. It was messing up everything. So I found these really thick washers, and once I did this, they just kind of breezed right in. But that took a lot of time. A lot of my energy's been going into putting these brake lines on. So I want them to be like factory. So I got a bunch of these brake line tabs. I just tapped this one. It's an M10 by 150. I got an extended brake line. So this is the factory size here. And then I got an extendo. So if you actually do measurements under the car where everything factory is located, the factory brake line will be like right here. I want to be able to pop the third member in and out. So I went with this route. I bought some Allison transmission magnets. So that way you can have something in there to collect all the stuff. I don't really like running them without a magnet in there. So if you have any debris left over, you have something in there. Basically hand bended all the lines. So this is all hand bended right here. Went through a whole debacle with trying to get these figured out to where I could still run factory brake line setup. So they don't sell a rear brake line kit for the G bodies. So I got this off of a F-body Camaro, and I ran into a problem. So these fittings have bubble flares in them. They don't go to a double flare. So then I ordered this part number here, which is basically off the front. And then that'll get you to the 3/16 double flare. And then it's just been trying to make it look clean and factory. I wanted to make it look like it wasn't just thrown together. That's why I got this housing on powder coated. So hopefully that way it looks like it's supposed to be in the car and it's nothing crazy going on. But I wanted to show you guys how I did this side here on this side. So this one will be quick because it's just from there to there. So this is the double flare fitting, and these are all the brake line tabs. I just ordered a bunch of them, different size. Pretty sure this one's like a 5/8 one. I'm just gonna drill it out so that way this little adapter right here will fit in here flush, and then you can put a regular factory brake line clip on here once you weld it on. So that's one of the big things with the Wilwood brakes. So I can't just run a hard line to this. I mean, I had to find whatever pipe thread this is to go to a double flare. I'm not even sure if that exists. But basically, Wilwood has their own AN fitting lines. So I thought that the calipers moved. That's why I bought all this stuff. But if I known that these don't move, they just basically get shimmed for however the width of for your pad clearance is for the rotor. So if I would have known that, I would have probably tried to find a fitting where I could have just put the double flare literally directly. That'll go from this to this fitting in a 90, then hard lined it straight in there. This won't be moving at all. So
So the clips you get from Willwood, they suck really bad. They bend super easy. They don't hold anything. So I went ahead and got just some basic brake line clips. I got a few of them and just picked the one I like the best. I think this is a universal kit, but that's the part number right there. Not my best double flare, but she looks good. Trick I never knew until I did some research on it is you're supposed to file like a 45-degree bevel on this. So if you're ever struggling with the double flare, you gotta take a good chunk of material off of here. I still didn't take enough because I still don't trust it. But it definitely came out a lot easier and cleaner. So here we go. I literally just hand bended this so it'll match this side. Probably would have been easier to make it go this way, but I want the hoses to be the same orientation. But other than that, brake lines are done. These little guys, I literally just took a universal brake line hold down kit like these, and then I took a pair of sheet metal cutters and just cut this up and just took the little hump out of it. That's pretty much how GM did it. These welds suck pretty good. This is probably the second time I've used this welder. Not in love with this one, but that side looks alright. These are complete garbage. I had a flux core welder. That's why these look like dog booty, but it's not holding the rear end in the car, so I just needed to hold the brake line on there. Other than that, little paint. Hopefully you don't notice it super bad, but I was going for is a factory similar setup, so we don't have to worry about it. Looks like it's supposed to be there. And I still want to maintain the functionality of just being able to pop the third member in and out. So hopefully this works out. I just did rough measurements, so I'm hoping when I put it in the car, like this doesn't become like a bump stop issue where this hits the frame or something like that. I don't love the idea of this one. You gotta think the rotor is gonna sit probably right about here. So this line's pretty close to the heat. I don't love that. But cool thing about this, if I hate it, this won't be that hard to redo in the car. Just grind these down, try again. Or maybe I find just a hard line straight to here, which is what I prefer, since I now know that there's not slide bolts on here. It's just spacers with washers. But now I'm going to prep everything to get painted, so that way we can get it ready to go in the car. Probably going to leave the brakes off, just so I don't screw them up, putting them in the car. Drag them, scratch them, all that fun stuff. Alright, so we got it all masked up. Just take you some tape, tap it with a hammer, the edges will come out super clean, just like this. I'm just going to paint all of the lines to match, so I just covered up the ceiling portions here and here. These guys where the bushing goes in, and this is a piece of aluminum, so I keep it like that. And then the old tinfoil trick for the lines. Easy to go, ready to paint. Alright, so we got it all painted up. Looks pretty clean. Tape lines came out really nice. Pretty happy with it. No? When I moved it though, I let it sit for 4 hours. It chipped all the paint up down here. But other than that, it looks pretty clean. But that's one of the benefits of paint. Just scuff it down once it's in the car. Should be able to clean up. Won't be perfect, but expecting to never scratch this while putting it in is pretty high expectation, I guess. It's heavy, clunky, but I think it came out pretty good. Put 2 cans of primer on here, 2 cans of engine enamel, and then I did 1 can of clear coat. Should be pretty durable. But all in all, pretty happy with it. Now the fun part, pulling all the crap out of a perfectly running and driving vehicle. And then once it's all set up, got to order a dry shaft and wait on that so I can drive the car again. The brake lines look pretty clean actually. I don't love this bend, but it'll work. It's not touching or nothing. I wish it matched this one a little bit better, but you can't really notice it. It's probably just me being crazy OCD. So I got the UMI upper control arm bushings in. You see here, that's why I made sure I didn't get any paint in there. These are pretty tight. I didn't grease them up or anything. I just got them in with a dead blow. And then these are like a helicoil style C-clip, I guess you could say. Not even, I don't even know. It's basically like a key ring. But now they're both seated in there properly and flush. So before, normally when I first installed it, this back one was sticking out above the other one, but now they're both flush. So these should be good. I put these little lock nuts towards the top. So that way if something does back out, hopefully it won't fall out of the car. Now to remove all that fun stuff. Alright, so we got the car all jacked up. I'm just gonna get down here, start taking stuff out. So the shocks are literally just 2 bolts on the top, and I'm probably going to try to leave all the control arms connected to where they're at, so that way everything just come out completely. Disconnect the brake line up there, pop the dry shaft out, and then probably just pull these front bolts out. The e-brake probably will be a pain in the butt. I'm sure that'll be a fun one. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward to drop this out of here. If I run any problems, I'll let you know. Alright, so I loosened up this little bracket right here. Gave me enough tension to pull this little guy out. Just had to force the bracket up the spring and manipulate it off. I'm gonna try a little wrench trick. I heard you can slide it open end over these, slide it out. I'm gonna see if I can salvage the factory e-brake cable since it's already routed and everything. I have a universal one, but I'm sure that'll be a whole project in itself. So try to salvage this one. Hopefully it'll work since it's already there. And obviously this e-brake still works, so it'd be cool if it still works. But let's check it out. Boom. 13 worked perfect. Now, that's one side done. Gotta do the other. Dinner's ready. Nice scooter.
It's new. This has a red one.
Yo. Alright, so it's all out. This brake line was a pain in the butt, so I didn't want to cut it. So you can kind of see if I can get you on here. Kind of see it right here. It's got one of those little clips in there. I used this guy and it grabbed that clip pretty good to get it out. I'm going to try to see if I can get these to work on the wheel woods. Probably not going to happen, but before I rip all this out of the car, see if I can use the factory stuff. If I was a super duper guy right now, I would clean this all up, but it's going to just be my rust preventer. So, oil doesn't rust. That's cool. If you have a rusty car, this top bolt right here goes inside to the inner frame. It's really hard to get to. I struggle with this one. I actually rounded the bolt off because you can't really get anything up in there. Let's see if I can show y'all. So there's a lot of brake lines, emergency cable in the way. So if you got a rusty car, you probably end up cutting that one out. Other than that, my bolts came out pretty good. But then I just took everything off as a whole assembly. Even my little spring cups look really nice and fresh. That's why I love this car. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead mount my new control arms from UMI. These guys right here. So this is the upper. I want the grease fitting up because the bottom will be the frame. And then for these ones, there's a grease fitting on the bottom. I'm gonna aim those down. But I think I'm gonna install them first, so that way I don't have to fight with the chassis. I can just fight with the rear end, and then once it's hanging on these, should be smooth sailing on that one. Alright, so she's in right now. Just roughly, I don't love the brake line. It's close to the exhaust. When it sagged down, it was like super close. So I might have to rearrange my dump situation. Maybe just angle it. Maybe put a 45 and cut her down. We'll have to figure it out. But I still have to align the rear end in the car, see if this is where it's going. For the stock mounts, I just measured down from the top of this to this bolt hole right here. It's about 5.5 inches, which is what this measures. So I'm just going to keep it at stock and see where it works out. I did mess up. I should have took a lot more measurements, like tire clearance. So I got these big old 275s in here, so should be scrubbing. I'm also worried that my wheels probably won't fit, but we'll see how it works out. I'm hoping with me being able to center this in the car now that it'll get better clearance, but you can tell how tight this fit is. It does this on both sides, so time will tell. Seems like the list just keeps growing on things to do for this one little project. Seems like every time I touch something or do something, You gotta order something, buy something, but I want to get it done. She's in there, just loose. All the bolts are loose. I'll play with it more tomorrow. Alright, so I stayed up late last night. Popped this side together. Got the brakes on. Adjusted the e-brake. So it's pretty tight. And I figured out the thread size for the back of the caliper. It's 1/8 by 27. And then you're supposed to seal it with MPT tape. I use some paste, but you can see right here. So if you can find a fitting that's 1/8 by 27 to 3/16 double flare, you can bypass this whole line assembly and just have it all hard line. Because I have a feeling if this suspension ever does bottom out, this piece is going to end up hitting the frame for me. So I'm going to have to figure out to either move it back or forward something. I might have to redo all the lines. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the frame and the axle are never that close together. But there is always a chance. For my brake line with the exhaust, if I remember correctly, when this is at ride height, this is a lot higher, so the exhaust should be down here, so it shouldn't be an issue, and it goes up and down without actually physically touching it. But I think at ride height it'd probably be up here, so it should be a good distance away from the exhaust. Still need to put my springs in. Haven't done that yet. Shocks. I did. This is like a push lock fitting. I had some left over from when I did my transmission lines on my truck. So I think this is just regular 3/8 push lock fitting. But this fitting is still smaller than that. But that's why I put this clamp on here. And then I just threw the loop up over the top, over that guy, like the rest of the fuel lines and stuff. So the vent part of it comes down a little bit. So it's venting back there. For the calipers, the paper calls for 2 shims, and then you just bolt her down. But you can see the spacing is pretty spot on. Looks good. There you go. So 2 shims works perfect for this housing setup. This is a Ford big end, so I'll show you how I did the other side. I did take some measurements on my U-joint. So on the old axle, I always thought this dry shaft was too short, but I have a strange forged 1350 yoke in this thing. That thing's like 12 inches long, like as long as crap. So, but that slides all the way forward, so I might be able to get away with not having to buy or cut down the dry shaft or make a new one, because I was already planning on having to buy a new one, and then I was just going to make it go ahead safe for big horsepower, so I don't have to worry about it, because that's going into turbo 400. But that's awesome news, because I don't have to buy, you know, $500 plus dry shaft. So all you do is take your caliper here and you just take a reading on the cap size. This one comes out to like a 1330. Yeah, 1.12. So if you go on, I found a cool post on Spicer's website about U-joints. So with the U-joints, it tells you how to get like combination U-joints basically once you go down further enough on the page. And it pointed me in the direction. So a 1330 big cap to a 1350, and then it's this part number, because I already had a dry shaft built for this, so it already has a little bit of beefier U-joints in stock. But this is a 459 from Moog. So it's got a 1350 on one side and then a 1330 big cap. So that way, hopefully I should be able to just bolt this dry shaft setup I have in here right now. So you can measure yours. Might have to get it cut down, but I know a lot of guys with stock setups, they have to go get the dry shaft cut down, because now the 9-inch makes it sticks out a little bit longer than the normal 7.5. So this thing's been sitting for a while, so I want to make sure all my sealing surfaces in here nice and clean, no dirt. So this is what's going to seal the axle. And these are sealed axle bearings, so it's not like a GM where you pop a seal in here. This is also your sealing surface. So So parking brake cable mount goes to the front, so it'll pull it like this whenever you're applying the parking brake. And you get these T-bolts in the kit. Just run them back through here, and then the T part will actually hit the axle so they can't slide around. You just got to make sure they're deep enough to hold everything. Good to go. So your longer axle on these cars goes on the passenger side. So these are 35 spline forged axles. Let's see if I can actually fit this in here. Not way too long. Nice. You kind of gotta like free float it, try to get it in the carrier. So we know it's seated. Spin in the drive line. Then you want to slip this bracket in, and it's got this raised edge. You want this to go towards the bearing, so that's what's going to apply the pressure, keep this axle in the housing. So this is the only thing keeping the axle from sliding out. So if you put it the other way, you won't get that pressure, so you might have some slop in the bearing. You just fish her through like this. Might have to move your emergency brake shoes around if you got the emergency kit brake brackets. So like that. And then these are 3/8 by 24 nuts. Comes with the kit. I had to order these. So when I put the studs in the housing, they're the same size. I didn't know if the T-bolts were supposed to be for the third member, or I didn't really know where they went when I first got it. Couldn't find too much information on it. So I tried to use those and they just fell out of the housing. And then I tried to press in the press studs that come with it, and I was struggling with it. Like, they were super hard to get in there. But once I figured it out using like a thick washer, like a really thick one, like the ones you get from Home Depot, they just bent like a soda can and actually damaged the seal surface. So once I figured out the thick washer, I got them all in. Like, I spent like 3 hours trying to get the studs in for the third member. So if you're struggling with that, I struggle too. And then I figured out these T-bolts are what holds everything together. Didn't find any information on that either. I've never worked on a 9-inch before. It's my first one. But then I found these grade 8 3/8 by 24 on Amazon. You get like 25 for $10. I went to all the local, hardware stores. They were all sold out of these, and they had a very small quantity because it's an odd size. So it's not your standard 3/8 by 16 3/8 nut. And then I just got the nylon lock nut too. I don't think you need washers for this because this backing plate's like 1/4 inch thick, so that should be plenty. And then you just snake this through to hold it all together. You use this little hole through the axle. Start your nuts. Pretty nifty. I've always had GM axles with C-clips. Not the biggest fan of that, because if they break, your whole axle and tire assembly can just fall out. And it happens all the time, and it can like basically total your car. So if that were like a C-clip axle and it broke, they would literally take out the quarter panel, could flip the car over. Like, it happens all the time. So it's one of the GM pieces I'm not in love with. That's why I've always kind of liked the 9-inch design. You can change your gear ratio out real quick. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out how to take the drive shaft out and take 12 bolts out and put a new member in it, slide the axles in. It's always been unique for me too. Like, say you were at the track, or say you're doing a drag and drive and you wanted to really have like a setup for street driving or track driving or different length tracks. Like, you could just easily do that with this setup. So I got all 4 bolts started, got the bracket in right. This axle slid in pretty good. Still going in pretty good. And then I like to seat it with the dead blow. That should be good. And you can start tightening your bolts up. This is going to keep the axle retaining plate in there, and then also hold your back housing for your brakes. Just want to feel around and make sure it's happy where it's at, feels centered. Now I'm going to go all the way to the other side so it pulls down evenly, cross pattern. This brake iron's a 11 millimeter. I got to put PTFE tape on this fitting here. It says it right in the manual, otherwise it'll leak. An 11 fits on there perfect as well. It's just a lot of tedious shit. Yeah, and I don't want to rush it. I want to do it one time and then be done with it. So I'm just taking my time, thinking it through, making sure I'm happy with every decision. I like to go ahead and install my brake line. It's easy access where you get the rotor and all that stuff in here. Start crowding up your workspace. So you're ready for your rotor. Just go ahead and back the e-brake adjustment out. I think the other side was like almost an inch, so you can go forever on this. You'll get it close. It's way out. But so far, like working with these Willwoods, man, I feel like there's not a lot of information out there. The manual doesn't help you too much because it's like generalized for everything. So I even looked to try to answer some questions on YouTube. Didn't have much luck. But hopefully this video helps you guys if you're questioning it or ever want to get into it. I think the only thing I regret is just I got tired of looking for parts and fittings, and it seems like every little roadblock I hit for just the brake lines, like getting the right fittings for that. And then I don't like that it's got, you know, 1, 2, 3 connections to leak all in one spot when I literally could have just hardlined this into the caliper. And then I tried to look for that fitting. I just said, screw it, I already own the lines. I just ordered this $12 fitting, went ahead and used them. Because this caliper doesn't move once it's mounted, so it's solid. So there's nothing for it to go, so I don't see why you can't hardline it. I feel like that would be a way more reliable connection. Just one solid line, and then the minimum connections as possible, so you don't have to worry about leaks. It's not like the front brakes like this is turning or steering, or like a factory car where they have slide pins so the caliper moves with the rotor. And these are universal rotors, so it comes with this adapter piece. You put the flat edge towards the rotor, and then this one, the little seat towards the, flat towards the axle, and then the seat towards the rotor. And then you got to find which bolt holes is yours. Feels pretty close right there. And then for the rotors, they come machined with this rotor or the arrow that tells you the direction of rotation. I don't know if it ever really matters because normally it's the fin orientation, but they're always straight fins whenever I see direction. Like I have stop techs on all my vehicles, and then they put this vent the opposite way like this. So I don't know, but if it's telling me to put it a certain direction, I put it that way. I know it's a big argument in the brake lifestyle. So this is how I check to see if the e-brake is where I like it. Because, I don't know, I hate when my e-brakes don't work. But I can tell right now I can put some more in this.
And it should be fine. I normally run these a little tighter because it's going to wear off all this little protection coat, and then it'll skim off any of the roughness on here, so it'll wear them in a little bit. Yeah, that's nice and tight. So that'll give you a real solid e-brake. So then for these, once you mount them, you just pull these out, and once you're ready, you slide this whole clip out and you just pop your pads in there. I leave them out till, because I'm probably going to rotate this for the dry shaft and all that. I'll probably wait till the very last moment for that. Don't forget your two shims, bolt, pop them in there. Same deal, just make sure it's between the bracket and the caliper. And I like to eyeball it with your calibrated eyeball. Make sure both sides look level. Make sure your fucking rotor's flat. This one actually looks off, so I'm gonna take one shim out on both sides. So this is deeper this way than it is this way. I'll show you. So you can see this side, and then that side looks way closer. Now it has a big gap. So I'm gonna take one of these shims out, see what it looks like. It's going TD in, TD out. Just trying to take my time so I don't have to do it again. And I like the way it is now. So hopefully I set it and forget it, and then it's good to go. I don't have to rebuild the rear end again. That's why I've been trying to be tedious, so I make sure I like the way I did it, not trying to rush to throw it in the car. So like last night I just stayed out here and I don't know, I was just very meticulous on how I wanted to execute everything. So I'm not rushing, and I'm trying to also enjoy it still. Yeah. Not to where I'm like, fuck, I'm tired of dealing with this. Let me just throw it in here, you know?
Yeah, well then I don't want to do anything fun for you.
I want to do is take the sprinkler and put it on the trampoline.
Too bad. You have to clean up your room first. You don't get to go have fun and leave your room a mess.
Ta-da! Alright, so it's all buttoned up. This is what the shim looks like now. I'm happy with that. Looks pretty level. Make sure the rotor's flat so you can see. Looks pretty nuts. So I took one shim on the passenger side, the other one took two shims. So I was looking in here last night and I forgot about this. But you see how much space between that and this bracket? I was gonna try to pick the best angle for this. So looking down the line of the car, looks like if I move it that way, it makes that joint angle a lot cleaner. So I think I'm gonna add a spacer right here. Luckily for me, I have a bag of spacers. So I got a big, thick boy like that. It should work perfect for going in here. The uppers were fine, but I'm thinking since it's an aftermarket rear end,
This bracket's a little bit wider for probably more application stuff. So add this little spacer in here, and then these bottom control arms should be good to go. All right, so I'm moving on to the super fun stuff with the e-brake cable. So I already pulled them out of the factory routing. So the new kit I got with the rear end is right here. These will clip to the back of the brakes and grab that little piece. So we're gonna try, I think it's like this. Not sure, we'll figure it out. But I think I'm gonna use this as the adjustment. Run this like to the length that I want. And then I was trying to find out a way to keep the factory lines, but I don't think it's possible. But that's the only adjustment I have on it. And I think if I get this capable of going through the adjustment bracket, I might be able to use this as my connection point. No idea how that's going to work out, but we're going to give it a shot. No turning back now. The old 13mm trick. See if it still works. Oh, and the bigger one. The 14mm trick. So I'm just going ahead and mount the backside the way I want it, and then we can get creative on trying to figure out how to mount these two to each other. I don't really like what they gave me in the kit. They gave me this big old clamp, and that cable already runs on the floor hard, so I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but we'll see. And then you got this little tie-in block thingy majiggy, so we'll see if we can figure something out with that. So this is where, I don't know if this is supposed to be an adjustment or just a way to attach it, but this also has adjustability in it. So I think I'm going to try to focus on this being the adjustability part, and this being just the connection part. What's up, Boo Bear?
I need to get better. I think I left my cactus bugs up here.
So once you put that little bracket on there, that's what it should look like. Looks pretty good. And you just mount it to that little nut right there. Then I'm gonna run it through the factory holes and try to clean it up as much as possible. Leave as much length as possible, so that way I have more ideas for where I can put the cable. Alright, so I got the cables all routed. Passenger side's routed. There's a little bracket at the top where that little bump stop is. It's thrown over, ran through the factory holes right in here. And there's like a little bracket for driver's side. I've decided to rivet that little sheathing bracket to the passenger or the driver's side passenger floorboard. My rivet gun won't fit in there because these are like GM like 07 to 13 bumper rivets, but the car's not tall enough. So now we're going to switch to putting the springs on the car. So I have brand new springs for this thing. I changed them to progressive rate, so they're supposed to ride better when there's not a lot of load in it, and then pick up the load before it bottoms out, since I always have people in the car. So alright, so I got some metal ticks. There's your part number. Yeah, this is the new Moog. Moog sucks now. Every time I order Moog, I get 13 different parts. Like I order 2 tie rods and they'll both be 2 different tie rods. Ball joints will be different. every time I try to do a whole front suspension. But these are the stock constant rates, and then these are progressive. So they'll be lighter off load, so they should ride better, and then as you get more load, it'll get stiffer as it goes down. Most guys don't like this for performance because you can't really tune for it. It's not consistent, but I put my whole family in this car, and I always bottom out the suspension going over bumps and stuff. So this will be a better fit for my application. The only thing I can read on these, sweet instructions is close coils, go to the top. I think that's about all I need to know on here. So I dropped the rear end down a little bit, so hopefully the strings will just pop in there, and then we just guide them up. Well, we already went that far. Might as well get our shocks on there. So I got Bilsteins. I didn't get the race ones. I heard they ride a little harder, so I'm still trying to maintain some ride quality. So those are part numbers. So they make two different versions of this. One's a sportier version, and then one's a more daily driver. These are the more not sporty ones. Even came with stickers. So when I put this spring on, it actually was sitting on the brake line, so I re-indexed it. I was trying to have them sit right where the old springs sit, so that way the rubber doesn't change the ride height, because they'll be worn into wherever the old spring was sitting. But I'd rather it be over there than know that there's pressure on this brake line. But now I switched them, all good to go. Nothing's touching the brake lines. Alright, so I got my bracket up here mounted, riveted, nice and clean. Cut my sheathing down, put my little collars in here, ran my cable back through. Got it chilling here until I can get it all situated. I think the best move I can do is I'm going to cut this right here and then try to flatten this piece out, so that way I can try to drill a hole through it, and then I can run this pin bracket through here and then run the adjustment, and it should be good to go. Alright, so emergency cable not gonna work right now. So I got this little piece off, and then I cut some relief cuts in it and then try to flatten it out. Then when I went to go drill it, I don't know if this stuff's made out of titanium or what, but I couldn't drill a hole through it, and I have some pretty serious drill bits. So I had to put so much pressure on it, the flat little piece I made for it broke off. So went online, I found Locar has like a single pull that'll bolt right onto this, but I'll probably buy another one of those extender clips and try to move the whole adjustment process into here so it doesn't hit the cross member whenever I try to put the e-brake on. So hopefully, ideally, I have the single pull, and it looks like the thread will just go into the double tie block that I'm trying to use, so it should be pretty clean. It's like 30 bucks. But now I have to wait on those parts to get here to have an e-brake, so I'm gonna move on to bigger and better things. So I wanted to kind of do this first because, I don't know, e-brakes are always a pain in the ass for some reason. So now I'm gonna load up the suspension, because you're supposed to torque all the control arms when they're under load at ride height. So I'm gonna simulate that with the jack and then torque everything in accordance with the manual. 75 foot-pounds seems pretty weak, but that's what we'll do and see how it turns out. Alright, day 3072. I popped the wheels on real quick, just put a couple of lug nuts on there. So these are 1/2-inch studs. So I didn't want to have, I've had a car with studs out to here before. Super annoying to put the lug nuts on, so I was super cautious about length. But I need like another 1/2 inch if I want this to be strip legal. So you need about a 1/2 inch protrusion for 1/2 inch studs. Rule of thumb is whatever the size of the stud, you need that protruding out of it. But that's in there. The wheel alignment actually is like pretty spot on side to side. I think it's off by like maybe a quarter at most to one side or the other, but I'm gonna save that for when I set the pinion angle. But I want to get this dry shaft in the car, so that's what we're gonna work on right now. I'm gonna do it the old school way. Just get you a pan in case you have any drippies. You pull, slide her out. So just trying to pop out these little clips on the inside. It's kind of what keeps them in place. I don't know how much of a pain in the ass they're gonna be. That's a missile. Watch out over there. We'll hold on to that one. Don't want it to take flight. Now for the fun part, just beat the shit out of it. So this is a steel dry shaft, so it's a little bit more reluctant. But if you have an aluminum one, you got to be pretty careful. You can bend the splines on there. So I like to get some salt pieces of wood. Big ass socket. Try that. Just pop your little cap off and run her back through. Ka-chow. Oh, that's the wrong U-joint. I need an internal clip. 1330. So this is useless. I tried to use the caps off the other one, they're too long. Can't get the clips in there. More parts, more ordering.
Popstar
Hey guys,
quality.
Keith Tips here.
Well, I hope you were talking about all this. I hope you got it on your little thing. You can just.
Yeah, it's not as upbeat as it needs to be.
Yeah, but.
I need to be like.
No, also as you're a normal person.
Alright, day 7072. Part 1,000,001 of parts that nickel and dime you until, you know, you kind of question your sanity. But this is my second conversion joint that I waited on. So I got a 53205X. And then, so I guess this is not a 330 or 1530 big cap. It fits in there nice. But the clips are on the inside. So this is a S44. So it's the same size, but the internal clips. I tried to use the cap off the original U-joint that was in there. That didn't work out. It's too wide. Can't get the clips in. It's not safe, so ordered the right one. Let's hope this one works. Alright, moment of truth. See if she fits in there. Please, please, please. In the heat of the moment. Alright, so I got me a dry shaft safety loop. I'll pop it in real quick. It's just 4 bolts and it goes in the factory location. Might reuse the factory bolts, but it did come with hardware. I'm sure the exhaust is gonna be right in the way. You know, super easy to mess with. So I'm just taking that little bracket out right there, putting the safety loop in case I do break that little tiny dry shaft. Doesn't go anywhere, stays in the car, or at least goes through the trunk, not through my kids. A little bit thicker. Yeah, these bolts might not be long enough. Yeah, they're longer. I do prefer these factory bolts though. They got a nice fender washer on there. Probably changed the size on me. Now I got all the same size. Holy shit. My car's got that automatic rust prevention system. Applies a little bit of rust preventative on the chassis every once in a while. That's why I say so, Mitt. Pretty cheap system, actually. Low maintenance. Don't get much easier than that. Make it look all pretty for you guys. I think it's pretty solid. Hell yeah. That's too easy, so I'm sure the dry shaft won't fit now. That's no bueno. It's gonna be too short. Alright, so I haven't been the best YouTuber lately. Been getting off work hella late. And I've been just grinding away on it for like an hour or two every night. Just trying to knock things off the list. So, got the new Bilstein shocks in. All 4 shocks were blown out. So this will probably be a huge ride quality improvement. I got the e-brake cable all situated. So I got this piece from Low Car. It's a single cable, universal brake cable piece. I got the part number up top. I had this super tight, like banjo tight, and you couldn't even put down the e-brake pedal. So I loosened it all the way up. It works now. It goes about halfway, 3/4 of the way to the floor. But if ever, because this cable keeps stretching out too as I use it, and so now I can still tighten it up too if it gets too loose. But that is operational. Drilled a little hole up here to hold this throttle return spring. So the amount of slack you have to put in this for it to work, it's the only way I can get it to work to where this isn't like super sloppy. So then when it gets tight, it'll just straighten out like that, have a nice clean pull, and then when it gets released, this will just pop back and hold the slack from bouncing around. New disc to disc proportioning valve. It's pretty pain in the butt to get up in there, but the headers make it challenging, plus the shifter linkage, it's all attached in there, makes it kind of tight. But what I used is some mini stubby wrenches, made it a lot easier. And then you can kind of work through the hole in the headers on some of them, and then obviously you got your easy ones, these two. But yep, bled the brakes. When I put on the front Bilstein shocks, they came with standard bolts that were longer, so for whatever reason the Bilsteins come with that big thick part on the shock, so it ripped all my factory tabs that the factory bolts screwed into, so I had to replace them with nuts and bolts. So I just found some metric bolts that I had in my bolt bin. Then I had some shock tower nuts I put on the top. It's kind of a pain in the butt. It took way more time than it should have. Got a new dry shaft in here. So I tried to reuse the factory dry shaft, didn't work. But now I got this 3-inch aluminum shaft. It's made by Fast Shafts, and I ordered it off of these guys, Speedway Motors. So you literally just put in your transmission type, what U-joints you want, and the length. So you measure it from this surface to this surface, which mine came out to 55 inches. Now you can see I have really nice engagement. I did space this down with some nice thick washers, and then I centered it up as much as I could to give me the most room. So I slid it all the way to the left for the dry shaft loop. Looks good. This thing is super light though, so compared to just the stock 2.5, I could pick this up with like 2 fingers now. I feel like it weighs like 7 pounds at most. But the material this is made out of, it's not advertised on anything I ordered it from or on the website of Fast Shafts, but this material and this thickness, with the 1350s, everyone's advertising like 800 horsepower plus. I've seen all the way up to 960 horsepower. No telling. I just have bad experience with aluminum just because I've watched all the GM trucks basically grenade them. So in theory, I always think steel's better, but I guess the science is the science. But light is better, but it'll counteract the 2 to 3% horsepower loss from the 9-inch just because of the way the pinion location design so low in the housing. So I'm hoping that'll counterbalance that, and then it won't be a kind of a zero loss situation. So but yeah, torqued all my nuts down 75 foot-pounds. Ideally you want to torque it from the nut side, but a lot of these you can't fucking get in there. So yeah, I had to torque some from the head side because I have like the exhaust, so it can't get a torque wrench in here. I'm not pulling the exhaust off for that. The upper ones are a pain in the butt, especially the ones in the back. Like you only put a wrench in the back. But yeah, those are all torqued up. These are all greased up. So I got these greased. I went ahead and filled the gears, or filled it up with a 80/90 gear oil. So that's what's recommended for the Detroit True Track. I originally bought some 75/90, but I guess the viscosity plays a big part on how the Detroit True Track works, which I didn't know that. So I put the thicker viscosity in there. It's supposed to help it actuate and perform better. But yeah, that's all the stuff I've been sneaking out here doing. I haven't really videotaped it. I probably have like 5 hours of me just doing things 9 times because everything I tried to do didn't really work out. So, but yeah, this is where we're at. I just need to set pinion angle, and once we set pinion angle, it should be ready to ride. So this is the stock proportioning valve. So this is just a generic 80s GM disc-to-disc convert proportioning valve. That's the Summit part number. It's pretty cheap too. I was gonna get a Willow one, but it was like double the money for no reason. It's the same thing. So I just went with the Summit one. If the Willow one would have been adjustable or something, I probably would have went with it, but I think anything like that was a lot of money and you gotta change all the brake lines and stuff. I wasn't trying to do all that right now. So this is the part number for that single wire to the double lock nut thing for the freaking the e-brake cable. I don't know how you're ever supposed to use this, but I feel like it's super clean setup now. And then just a Amazon special, you know, some ching chong throttle return springs, all present and accounted for. I just use this stuff. 80/90, has no additives in it, made in the USA. Cool. For the bleeding the brakes, I didn't know this, never had fancy brakes before, but on this little bleeder, there's a little bleeder on the action. You don't actually bleed the big screw. That little tiny guy right there is a 1/4 inch. I just happen to have this little wrench. If you have a regular 1/4 inch wrench, it'll work too. But yeah, that was interesting. Not a big fan of tiny bleeders because once they corrode, they kind of stick. For the 4-piston situation, you got to bleed the inside first, then the outside, and then
with this being all fresh lines, I had to bleed this thing forever. I feel like 2 hours. And every time I felt like I got it, I'd get a bunch of air, some more. And then eventually I got like a constant flow of fluid. I also had to flush all the fluid out. This car sits a lot. It's like the third time I flushed the brake fluid out of this. But sitting is not good for these cars, so I'm sure it sucks up all of the moistures. And it was like black brown almost. It looked like that. So it's all clean and freshed up. So we should be good to go. Just need to set this pinion angle. All the hardware for the upper control arm for adjustability is like 1 inch. And I got this little angle finder. So hopefully we can get this dialed in. So for pinion angle, I've never really set one of these up. Kind of understand it. All the videos I watch, you can go nuclear. And I think the easiest way I've seen is to basically, so I put the car in neutral where it's flat. And if I do that flat and get my reading off of this pinion. So the easiest way I've done it is if you can get both of these to basically match each other within that 2 degree or however much. If you get them at the same angle, you won't have any vibrations. But I'm sure there's someone, you know, that wants to go nuclear and do all that stuff. You can set yours up however you want. So I'm gonna do mine. Already looking too big. That's sweet.
At the axle. Basically, it's the pinion angle or the driven member angle. The easiest way to do that is to make sure that your drive shaft is rotated.
All right, we set some pinion angles. Got me some new bolts and the dry shaft safety loop. There you go. So I put some longer ones in there since I spaced it out. Clearance looks pretty good. I pushed it over as much as I could this way, maximize clearance. This is what I was getting. So I went and picked me up new digital meter. You see here. Figured this is a great spot to zero it. So once you calibrate her, right there, I'm getting 2.5. And then you come back here. Bounces around a lot, but 2.7. So these are pretty close to the plane. This is aiming up. This is aiming down. So the U-joints should have some angle in them and work properly. That's the simplest way I could digest it. Because basically these are on the same plane. Hope it helps you. Hopefully it works for me. We don't have a bunch of vibrations. Oh yeah, so I adjusted these. That's how I got my pinion angle. The center is 1 inch, and then the big one is 1 1/8 inches. And then I just did a finger check on the frame well, and they're both about the same. So that way, the rear end is now centered in the frame. Maximize clearance for these big old 275s. So raw.
Alright, so I put about 200 miles on the car. I broke the gears in. I've been beating on it pretty good. I get like 0 traction in first gear now. It's pretty quick now when it does hook up. But if I had to guess, it's probably like a 12, 13 second car now. Like counting what I got in it, that's pretty cool. Mainly the rear end's what made it fast. So I got the motor for free. But the things that I did have issues with is the brakes. So the brakes, it was really hard to get the proportioning valve to like reset. So that was a pain in the butt. It's still not perfect, so I might have to run a different master cylinder or, you know, reconfigure some stuff. I don't have to figure it out, but I don't like how long the throw is in the pedal now. But it does stop, so can't really complain too much about that. The rear axle seals, yeah, those things exist for these 4 9-inches. I didn't know that. So I got to pull it all back apart and put axle seals in it. Got some fresh puddles in the garage. So, but oil looks nice and clean. I don't have any loud noises coming from the back. Pulls both tires, no problem with the Detroit True Track. Haven't had any really big complaints about the brakes. You can just see the wheel all wet from those axle seals. So I'll probably do that and then put a 1/2 inch longer stud in these things all at one time. Yeah, don't mess up like me. You don't have to go back and do it again. But this video has taken me a couple of years. I got deployed in the middle of it, and then I've been gone for almost a year at a time, and then just broken up. And yeah, it's been a difficult project with timing, but all in all, it's finally done. I got my garage floor back, so that's cool. But if you got any questions, let me know. This video is going to be pretty long. I couldn't decide if I should break it up into a bunch of videos or just keep it into as one video. So let me know in the comments. Make sure you guys subscribe. I'm going to keep doing some projects like this. Everybody's watching my videos. I just got no one subscribing, so you could do that. I appreciate it. The Bilstein shocks I put on there as well greatly changed the way this car rides. So I have solid body mounts on this thing. Now I have solid rear control arms. So you get a lot of driver feedback. So if you're on the fence about those shocks, just go ahead and do it. But I think it rides pretty close to factory as is, which is pretty impressive for counting what I have on there. I'm about to do a sweet burnout to close out this video.
Hell yeah, brother.